welcome back. We are Feedback Loop Coaching, and I'm Rachel. I am interviewing Chris about his time in Brazil in the Amazon jungle with the Yawanawa tribe. And this trip occurred end of May, beginning of June, and we are recording a series of reflection videos. I'm interviewing Chris a bit about what that experience was like in case anybody who tunes into Feedback Loop Coaching is curious. And we are now on the third video of the series. So there's no need to watch in chronological order. If you're just tuning in now, welcome. It's an honor to have you here. It's an honor to be invited into your feedback loop. And today's video, we're talking about the second of 3 ceremonies with the uni, which is the Yawanawa word for ayahuasca. It's the ceremony that has now been affectionately referred to as the one with the blue people or the one with the blue beings, the talk of the town. And I think where we left off was Chris and your travel companions had just wrapped up your time in Matum, which is Mazzini's village, a 5-minute boat ride up the river, down the river. I don't know which direction, but via boat. And you're back in your jungle home in Hushahu's village, central Awawana. And I think in the last one, you talked about everybody attending the jewelry sale. So maybe we pick up there. Is that a good place, or we already passed that?
You already passed that.
All right. I'll let you take the lead.
Okay. Yeah, I think near the tail end of our second reflection video, we started talking about getting our gear. You're wearing your bracelet right there. I had mine, but unfortunately, after wearing it for a few months, I was taking it off and it began to fall apart. So I think my time with it was up, but it was like very strong. So we got our gear, we had our face painted, and we were ready to go. It's like we were fully protected for this ceremony that was going to be at Central Awawana within Hushahu's home. And this was occurring on a Friday, so it was about 2 days after the ceremony that we had at Mazzini's home. But we were all ready to go. We were all. It felt like we were initiated into the Yawanawa, considering we're all decked out in our jewelry. We all had our sacred face paint on, and the jewelry and the face paint and the painting was known to just help protect the physical body from anything that may occur when we were dissolving all the realms and dissolving the physical world and welcoming in, as like the shamans would call it, the upper worlds, the lower worlds, and also maintaining the middle world. So it's Friday. We're excited. We're getting ready. That first, we were told it was going to be a 2 p.m. ceremony, which was just different. I've never taken uni or ayahuasca during the day, and others talked about how it just offered a different experience than at night. And so it was morning. We had breakfast. The schedule said ceremony 2:00. So like, okay, whew, it's gonna happen again. And my intuition was telling me today's the day. Today's the day you're gonna go for it. You're going to take your full servings. You're going to surrender into the experience. We have cultivated enough trust for the land, for the facilitators, for those around you, to be able to let go and surrender. So I was especially excited, considering my first ceremony. I just took un poco, just a little bit. Didn't go. I went into the forest, but I didn't fully dive in. I just kind of like put my toes into the water, so to speak. So then, let's see. We go back, we have our breakfast, we go back, we rest just to prepare.
What was for breakfast?
Oh, breakfast usually was we had eggs, we had some potato, I can't remember, plantains, potatoes, cassava. I think that's
Flour?
the flour. Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. There were these little like flour tortilla cakes. Um, some coffee. I think there was juice or tea also. I enjoyed breakfast. I was a huge the plantain. Yeah, plantains. The Yukon potatoes. Oh, Yuko. I miss Yuko now.
Oh, you.
Our Japanese friend. Yuka. There it is. Yuka. And
Inside the delicatessen.
yeah, inside the delicatessen, our Jewish deli inside the middle of the jungle.
Inside joke from the first video.
Yeah, so maybe you do have to watch the first video to get the joke. So we go back to our little hut. We begin to rest. You know, I'm in my hut with Hodolfo. We're resting. We're talking about just consciousness. We have a really nice conversation between he and I. Shared with him like the energy levels and energy leadership, and he was like, "Wow." Mm-hmm. He was blown away by it. He had never heard of such a modality, and he could see how it fits with medicine work. So a few hours go by, and then we begin to hear whispers that the ceremony is being shifted from 2 p.m. to nighttime ceremony. So like, okay. And this falls in line with what we were shared with at the beginning of the retreat, that there were experiences planned, though jungle time and the jungle determined when things were going to occur, which I love because I'm big into flow, and it's beautiful to see when others listen and tune in rather than force something. And that just further creates more trust for me and the people and everyone around that I'll be sitting with. So we go get lunch. Let's see, what's usually for lunch is usually like chicken, rice, plantains, more yuca. It's lunch is like the heartier meal. And on the schedule, it said instead of ceremony at 2, there was a music and song workshop. So it's like, I'm excited. They've been singing to us and playing music for us all week long. This tribe loves song and loves to sing prayer. So 2 p.m. workshop. The group is pretty excited for that. I felt like a few people were bummed that ceremony had shifted, though the vast majority of us were just excited because we learned that more and more people were going to be showing up for ceremony that night. And that ceremony that night was truly going to be to celebrate Hushahu and celebrate all the work Hushahu had done over the year. And it was the first ceremony going to be held in her space since it had been completely redone. And so we have our sound workshop where we were gifted 3 different chants, 3 different songs that they did not share with us the meaning of the songs. It was expressed that to get the meaning, it's important to go into deep study. And we weren't in deep study. We were just doing this 2-hour workshop. Though they shared songs with us that I guess they described it as neutralizing the vibe and neutralizing the energy. They have songs and prayers that will lift you up and they have songs and prayers that may settle things down a little bit. So we had this 2-hour workshop, learned 3 different chants. We got to record them. They went over the pronunciations and how to write it down. And I remember at the end of the workshop, Mackenzie being like, all right, we better go back and study. We have to go back and study. They're going to test us on this. And I was like, okay, Mackenzie, like, sounds great. So it's like 4 o'clock now. So it's about a 2-hour workshop. We go back up to our huts to rest for ceremony, which was going to begin at 9 o'clock. And I'm laying in my hammock. I put my headphones in to listen to the chants because I trust when Mackenzie says, learn this, we're going to be tested. So just laying in my hammock listening to this. And then I could hear her. I could hear Mackenzie chanting this stuff loudly. And her little hut, her hut wasn't close to mine. There was a big building between our huts. And I could just hear her singing and chanting. I'm like, wow, you are really going for it. You are doing the best you are doing your best to learn these things because you have experience with this tribe. You have experience with the medicine and you respect it. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to read. So I did my part. And I also rested because I knew that we'd be up for 12 hours. Though little did I know how important that rest was going to be, little did I know what we were going to experience when we were on the medicine. So we rest. Dinner happens, and for dinner we have a soup. They serve a light soup, just so the body has some nourishment for the long night. So I go down, I have my soup, and maybe it's like 7 o'clock. I go back up to the hut, gather my belongings. I get my ceremony gear, which is my chair, my hape. I put on long sleeves, put on pants, put on socks, just stuff so I could wear that I could surrender so I didn't have to worry about bugs. So I tried to get all my skin covered up. I had my scarf. I had my what's that thing called? They call it the poncho. I was going to call it a drug rug. My poncho. I had my poncho that I got in Peru. I'm like ready to go. And I also brought down my electrolytes because I didn't want to get dehydrated. So I grabbed my gear. I go down back to Hushahu's Central Awawana hut where the ceremony is going to take place. And we all find our spots. And I don't know if I described the inside of the space in the other videos, but it'll be worth touching upon this again. So the way the space is set up is in the center of the space, there's a boa constrictor mural on the floor. And it's a giant circle. On the outside of that there's 10 or 11 support beams that create this dodecahedron shape on the outside of the circle. And we all set up our chairs to the outside of that. So the ceremonial space was in the center over the boa constrictor. And there were also 4 different murals painted. There was a mural of an elder. There was a mural of a tiger. There was a mural of a cougar. Cougar? What do we call a little Trixie? Panther. Jaguar. Panther. Thank you. And then there was also a mural of a butterfly. And those were all painted to protect the space. They were all painted to help protect those who are on the medicine, to protect the realms that aren't seen, and also to protect the worlds that are seen. And we all set up our chairs on the outside. I think I was on the far end, so there's two doors. There's the main entrance door that we'd walk into, and right next to the main entrance door were bathrooms. And this was on the outside of the space. I sat on the far side, and there was another door behind me. And on the outside, there was this deck. And it was expressed to us when they began to talk to us about the ceremony. They said, okay, if you need to leave the space, like don't and go purge and go puke and go to the bathroom, don't go on the ledge of the deck, because the ledge of the deck was about 10 feet above the ground and there was no railings, so you could easily fall, especially being in a fragile state. And I was sitting near that rear door, so I'm like, okay, if I need to go, I'm going to go out this door, but I'm going to stay close to the building. I'm going to honor the request and not go near the edge. So we're getting ready for ceremony. I have my seat set up. Shauna and Joy are next to me, and then Mackenzie's on the other side. So we're like a pillar. We have our cacao community. We are together. They talk to us about the ceremony. They share with us that there will be friends and relatives of Hushahu showing up. So there's about 40 of us retreat goers, and I want to say at least another 100 people showed up via boat to attend the ceremony. So they showed up coming down the river at nighttime. And so they show up. The space begins to feel full. Though I want to recognize that it didn't feel like it was dense. It was full, but it wasn't dense. It wasn't like crowded. It wasn't energetically full, so to speak. It was just
Full and spacious.
Full and spacious. Yes, that's a great way to say it. And I was like, okay, wow. The whole circle's being filled up. The room there's a lot of people in here. What's this going to be like? You know, I had already decided I was going to take my full servings. I didn't anticipate this many people coming in, though my trust didn't waver. My trust was still there that I'm going to go for it. And Hushahu came in. All the other leaders came in who were going to serve the medicine. A quiet filled the air. And you could just feel this, especially amongst the retreat goers, you could feel this anticipation of like, what's going to happen? What's next? We're doing this. It's happening. So they bring in a fire that has coal and a resin being burnt that's cleansing the space, and they put it into the center of the circle where the boa constrictor is. And Hushahu gets up. I think it was Kuru and Yawa and a few other people get up and go to the center. And they just start praying and clearing and cleansing the space. And this was probably one of my favorite moments because there was a little girl walking around with her little toy car, and she was just being a kid. And I'm just witnessing her being a kid while also witnessing the ceremonial space be created. And everyone just encouraged the girl to be a girl. And no one stopped her from like pushing her cart around in the circle. No one's like, you shouldn't be doing that. We're doing this. Everyone's like, play, 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 enjoy. And then I witnessed the little girl like walk up to Hushahu and the others who were at the coal, get involved. And they started to show her what they were doing. And that only created more trust for me. That only helped me feel more comfortable and safe in the space. To recognize the child, to welcome in that youthful energy. I was ready to go. Yeah, I'm just going to put this down for a second.
Hold on to it. Thank you. You've been going for it. I'll do my best to chime in to give you a break. And just some points of reflection for me in hearing about this. A few, hearing about the conversation with Hidalgo about energy leadership and how beautifully that ties in with this conversation. Energy leadership is about expansion of consciousness. Last night, I had a session with a client, and it was part of the Law of Being program, and it was segment 5, session number 8, so halfway through the program. And we discussed the benefits of higher consciousness. And the modality of energy leadership quantifies our consciousness. So what Chris is probably telling Hidalgo about is the levels of energy. And so in this modality, if you're unfamiliar with energy leadership, there are 7 levels of quantifiable energy. And we at Energy Leadership Index Master Practitioners, we have the ability to administer the Energy Leadership Index assessment. So our clients take the assessment, and then it measures their consciousness. And so that's based on how they perceive each question, and based on how they perceive each question, that's how they're going to answer each question. And then the calculations will work its magic and deliver to us the results so that we can show our client a mirror, kind of like an X-ray of their energy. And something I love about this modality is that when it comes to expansion of consciousness and opening the doors of perception, there are some doors that are challenging for people to walk through completely sober. With enough practice, like with meditation, people can walk through those doors sober. Though meditation does create an altered state of consciousness. And psychedelics can also work wonders in opening those doors of perception for people to walk through. And so I just wanted to touch upon that because Chris is going to share a lot about what the uni opened in terms of perception. And I've heard a variety of reactions when I've heard Chris like out in the world around people describing this experience. I've heard it, people ask like, so was it a hallucination and things along those lines. And why I love energy leadership as a modality is because it shows that when we expand our consciousness to the highest anabolic levels, like levels 6 and 7, we can see much more. So, in terms of dimensionality, we typically perceive the third dimension. And when we use our imagination, we're accessing the fourth dimension. And then when we participate in ceremonies like what Chris is about to describe, we get to access the fifth, sixth, seventh dimensions, wherever the, I guess I'll call them volunteers, like dimensional volunteers of galactic possibilities, wherever they reside, wherever they dwell. That's how we can sort of gauge which dimension we're interacting with. So I know in our circles, a lot of people are big fans of the Palladians. So I want to say they're ninth dimensional or seventh dimensional beings. I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't really care too much about which, once we're beyond the fourth dimension, I'm happy. I'm happy in any dimension. And just if you're wondering about what are the first and second dimensions, like maybe you've got a grasp of the third dimension, what's 1 and 2, just some insight. 1 would be like the mineral world, rock, iron. 2 would be the plant world. And then 3 is middle earth. And we expand and contract. The expansion of dimensions is a transcend and include journey. So we don't sever the cord to our planet, at least not yet. We include all of the dimensions. So that's another important part of the kinds of ceremonies that Chris is going to describe. There's no leaving completely. There's a really clear anchor, keeping everyone tethered to earth. Though, so just to return back to energy and the expansion of consciousness, it's not a hallucination. It's an expansion of consciousness so that you can perceive what's actually there all the time. But because we come into a world of assumptions, we come into a paradigm that's already established, and we absorb what in our Tao studies is called the acquired mind. The mind absorbs the paradigm around us, and then those are our assumptions. We make assumptions about time, about space, and that's how we move forward. So we wake up tomorrow full of assumptions that the home is going to be here. I'm going to turn on the water. Water's going to come out. I'm going to open the fridge. Everything from last night's going to be there. Those are all assumptions. But what if we didn't have any? I'm going to hand it back to you. And I think you left off with just ready to go, because you saw the childlike energy. You saw how everybody was encouraging the child to be a child, and that childlike joy spread. And just a note, when it comes to energy leadership, joy is an expression of level 6 energy. Level 6 energy is beyond the veil of the third dimension. Level 6 energy is the level of oneness. And so it makes complete sense to me that our joy that a child brings and the nurturing of that child would prepare you for what you're about to experience.
Thank you. Thanks. It's not easy, like traveling there. Like,
in the fourth dimension.
yeah, like as I'm sitting here sharing this with y'all, I'm back there while right now.
And I will say this about Chris, because I don't know if everybody knows this about you the way that I do, that you typically don't live in the fourth dimension. Like a lot of us live in our imaginations, and you fully live in your body. So I can imagine what it's like for you. Like it is a journey for you to leave your body and travel back using the portal of the fourth dimension, the imagination, to relive all this. So I know what that takes for you. For those of us who just live in our imaginations, it's not as much of a journey, as much of a leap out of the body. So I know. So thank you.
Yeah. And thanks for holding the space for it. Yeah. Whew. All right. Let me get back. So I was like sitting here being like, okay, I want to be this clear channel and get it out. So any questions along the way to help me guide is welcomed because I'm just in it now. So
Sure, I've got some questions. So maybe describe, because we heard the setup at Mazzini's village. So now there's a new setup. You all are going to be receiving the uni now. So maybe you can describe that setup and tell us the process of getting your cup.
perfect. Great. That's exactly where we're heading. Just in time. So the space has been set. They say the prayers. They clear the space, and the resin that's being burnt is called Sepa, and it's their version of sage. I really, really, really enjoy it. It just feels different than the sage does. So the space is cleared, and then they start talking to us about the uni, which is going to be served. And where I'm sitting directly across. I'm like parallel to where they have their ceremonial setup, where the table is that has the medicine, where they'll be setting up the music and singing. And they express to us that there will be two lines set up. There will be two versions of the uni being served. There's uni light, and then there's the more potent uni, which is the lighter uni's more of a lighter beigeish color, where the more potent uni is darker. And they're like, okay, you can choose which line you're going to go in. Again, this was another moment that helped create trust for those who were serving the medicine. Because since there was probably, we'll say, between 125 and 150 people at this ceremony, many of them have been sitting with Uni for a long time. Many are newer. They've only sat with Uni for a handful of times. So
Some not at all.
yeah, and some
Like one time.
some one time, some not at all. Some people's first experience was on a few days prior to at Matum with Mazzini. That was their first time taking the medicine. So they set up the two lines. I decide that I'm going to go for the uni light. I'm going to get in line. I'm going to stand, and I'm going to take a full serving of it. So I'm standing in this line. I'm watching people get their servings. They go up. I'm standing, waiting. It's my turn to come up, and I'm like, okay. I told him, I'm like, full serving, please. I gotta do this. Because this would be the poco, this would be a little bit, this would be the full. So they pour it into this glass, like fine china, like glass, and then they blow on it to cleanse and purify the medicine. They hand it to me. I look deep into the eyes. I believe this was Kuru who was serving it to me. Oof. Excuse me. And I'm standing there. My feet are connected to the earth. I'm looking in his eyes. I receive the medicine. Could you hold this for a second? You know, they give it to me. I grab it. And then I look at it. I set my intention. Take my sip. And you just put the whole thing back. You don't just like take a few sips. You drink the whole thing at once. And then I hand it back to Kuru. Give him kind of prayer hands, because it's universal, prayer hands, thank you, gratitude. And then I go and sit. I go sit down at my chair. I wait for everyone else to get their servings. And once everyone gets their servings, it's time for everyone to stand up, to go into the ceremonial circle. And at this point, they create 2 circles. They create a circle on the inside and a circle on the outside. And the way these circles are set up is all the men are linked together, and they're linked arm and hand. So like if you're a guy, your hand would be right there. My hand would be grabbing on, then my other arm would be out. And for women would grab hands. And if you were the end of the line, like there was points where I was the last guy in line, so I would have one hand lowered for the lady next to me. Then I'd have one hand lifted and grabbing onto the bicep. So we'd be in our circle, and I was connected to, I was fortunate to have had the guidance from Mackenzie that when the Yawanawa are together, don't break the chain. Let them stay together and you go to the end. So I had the experience of being the first guy connected with the Yawanawa men. And that was just really powerful. So what we did I don't even know how long it was, but it was while the medicine was coming up and through us. We would walk in a circle around the resin that was burning in the center, and they would start chanting. We would chant. When I didn't know the chant, I would just listen and feel into the energy. And I just noticed so much kinetic energy pulsing through all of us. So much so that since everyone was staring at the coals, fire would start to burst and fire would start to come up. And I was like, whoa, that's just like so much happening right now. And then someone would go and put the fire out to just let it smolder and let the resin burn. And then another fire would pop up. I'm like, what are we in for tonight? Because this kept happening over and over and over again as we were just going around and walking in this circle, walking and chanting. And if you wanted to go and sit down, you could. Though it was suggested and recommended that you stay in the circle. That's where the magic was being created. That's where the power of the uni was really coming forward. And there were moments when I was walking that I could feel my legs start to shake. I could feel my body start to become weak. It wasn't like a tired weakness. It was just this like weakness that occurs when medicine is starting to awaken within you.
Like form is kind of losing its credibility, I guess. Like
Yeah.
no longer form.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Form is losing its credibility. The third dimension is dissolving. Um, so, yeah, that goes on for a while. And at one point, I'm like, okay, I'm done with the walking. I need to go sit. So I go and sit, and others begin to sit. And at this point, I'm staring, kind of just like gazing straight up above the ceremonial space. So I'm like staring into the rafters. And what's really interesting about this space was that Hushahu's room is above the ceremonial space. So they had stairs that went up. And I'm just kind of staring up at that space. And at one point, I began to hear the words, I am. And I'm like, internally, I'm like, okay. And over again, I hear, I am, I am, I am, I am. It's like on repeat, almost like a broken record. I am, I am. And then this thought came to me, was like, is my mind trying to fabricate something? Because to say, oh, I'm on medicine, this is happening, this is the medicine, I am, I am, I am. And at that point, when I started to question it, another voice came and says, when you are. And my intuition responded, I am. And at that point, I was like, okay, the medicine is doing its thing. The medicine is clearly influencing me. There weren't really no visuals at this point, though I did see a hand appear. And as the hand appeared, I began to hear I am louder, and I began to hear it more and more. And then I realized that it was the hand of God, being like, when you are, I am. When you are, I am. When you are, I am.
Was it like, do you remember what the hand looked like? Was it like small, giant, human?
It was just this giant hand. I wouldn't describe it as human. It was definitely like holographic, like a holograph. But I could see it in the space, and it just was there. And I was like, okay, interesting. And then they began to chant again. And the hand of God was there. And then messaging started to appear around loving thy father. On Tuesday night, during our first ceremony, the messaging was love thy mother. And that was a big moment for me, considering just past stuff that I experienced in my life. But this time it was love thy father. The messaging was love thy father, as the chanting was coming up, as they were chanting. And I began to have a bit of a life review around different experiences that I had with my father. And I didn't attach to them because I noticed the I am was tapping me into the present moment. And I didn't really understand what was going on. I wasn't trying to conceptualize it. I was really just allowing it. And then at one point, they changed songs, and the uni was like, okay, time to purge. And I was like, okay. So I got up, I walked out, I walked through the back door, I walked along the perimeter of the building, went to the bathroom, I walked into the bathroom, and I'm looking at the wall, and I'm looking at the tiles, and then I hear, I am this too. And I'm like, And I look at the toilet paper, and it's like, I am this too. I look at the sink, I am this too. And then I heard myself, I am. And then I began to purge. And I began to purge. I began to just let something out. And I also noticed that what I was purging wasn't mine. And there was this guidance was like, you're purging you're purging a collective energy. You're purging something that's greater than you. Though remember, when you are, I am. It's easy. I've been on these different purging experiences. I remember being at Dustin's having hot pay and just getting really sick after. And while I was going through that purge, I had all these thoughts coming up and I was spiraling, spiraling, spiraling. And I think that was just encouraging more and more. Though the spiraling wasn't occurring because the I am was helping me to stay present with what was. And I could hear music or I could hear this chants going on. And then I heard the chants stop and my purging ended. I was like, interesting. The songs that they were chanting were impacting me at an energetic level, helping me to release something. I wasn't attaching to what that something was. I just knew I was releasing something. When I was done, I went to the sink, I washed my hands, looked in the mirror, had like one of these like whoa moments. Like, let's get it together. And then I walked back to my seat. Yeah. I walked back to my seat.
You ready for another break?
Yeah.
I just love hearing the story of the tile and the toilet paper being like, I am this too, because I pictured like cartoons with like eyeballs and mouths. Yeah. Thank you for what you're delivering. And I know it takes a lot to go back in and re-experience. And I don't know how long you would like a break for. Okay. So again, what's coming to mind is psychedelics. Chris and I are big fans of psychedelics and what they're able to open for us. And something that is coming up for me now as I think about all of my journeys with psychedelics is that we get to let go of any avatar we've been, I'll say, occupying that no longer serves. This is fresh in my mind because of a recent Eckhart Tolle YouTube that flashed across my algorithm. And it's about when you awaken to the life that you've been playing out and maybe recognize that it's just not who you are anymore. It's not in alignment. It's not where you want to go. And it can be so hard to really believe that there are any other options because most of us have relationships and responsibilities. So jumping out of one life and into another seems impossible. Though something that psychedelics can really help with is illuminating the, like, as Chris said, the I am, and reconnecting you with that divine spark, the essence of who you are. And that's something I've always loved about psychedelics is they always help me to remember who I am. And if I'm not being that, I get to adjust and recalibrate. And I feel like I've lived multiple lives. I put on an avatar for a while to be a corporate person. And psychedelics helped me to awaken to the role that I was playing and evaluate how is this working for me. And that I am statement helped me to really root into my divine power and remember that I can choose something else and I'll survive. I'll still live. We talk about ego death a lot with psychedelics, and the ego's job is to stay alive. And the ego is connected with our individuality, so we would never actually want to lose that. Our soul knows we're all one, though our egos, they're fractals, they're beautiful fractals of the one, and we are beautiful prisms. So when the oneness of that pure white light of oneness refracts through us, our egos create these rainbows. And we would never want to give that up because we're all drawn to different passions and areas of study. And then when we come together and synthesize all of our passions, we can create a thread work that is just full of infinite possibilities and solutions and innovations. Though sometimes the ego just gets stuck on repeat, playing the same old life over and over in the same old day. And then we end up in this world that we created by default, not by choice. So psychedelics can be such a beautiful way to wake up to that moment and realize that I'm not choosing this anymore. It's not serving me. Something that we call our core concepts at feedback loop coaching include evaluation. It's our three core concepts are awareness, evaluation, and choice. So what I love about psychedelics is they shine the light of awareness on so many aspects of our lives. And then when we are grounded, we have the opportunity to objectively evaluate and ask, how is this serving me? And then if it's not serving, if it's not nourishing my heart or lighting up my soul, what choice do we want to make? And that is our birthright, to make a new choice. And something that journeys with psychedelics or working with a coach. If you don't want to do psychedelics, you could always hire one of us and we can help you through that. Though psychedelics could be just an immediate window into all these different timelines. That's something I've always been a big fan of with my journeys with mushrooms is this like a smorgasbord of timelines appears before me, and I invoke the dreamer's timeline. What's my highest dream? And that one appears, and I walk through the doorway into that timeline. And that's really how Chris and I have created. We've been together for 5 years, and we created much of our lives based on the dreamer's timeline, and it's working out pretty well because now Chris is back from Brazil talking about blue beings. So I'm going to pass it back over to you. And I think so you left off talking about you just had your experience in the bathroom. The Yawanawa stopped chanting, and you looked in the mirror and said, "Get it together." And now you're back in the space. And then what?
This is very much alive in me right now. Oh my god. Fuck.
I wonder how much the cacao we had a very intentional. We sat with our cacao before sitting down to record this and had a very intentional opening up an invitation of the cacao, which is a medicine from the jungle, very close to Brazil. This is from Peru. I wonder how much this is reconnecting with the roots of the jungle.
It probably is because I just happened to purge coinciding with the part of the story where I purged. So, yeah.
Okay.
um,
Did you then look in the mirror and say, "Get it together"?
I had to get it together. Splash some water on the face.
A live purging.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had that yet on our YouTube.
Never know what you're going to get with us. Okay. So, back inside. And now they're getting ready for the second serving. And for the second serving, same thing. 2 lines. You pick your line. You let them know how much you'd like to be served. And I knew that I was about to enter the force. I was about to enter into the realm of the Uni, into whatever she was about to reveal or show me or shine light on.
I have a question. I can't remember. Did we already talk about in the previous videos about the force, like being the jungle and the connection between the force and the jungle?
I don't know. Though, as a reminder, maybe it's new information. Who knows? They call it the force. Because the Uni, the Ayahuasca, it's coming from the land that we're walking on. So it's growing wild in the jungle around central Awawana. And that's where they're picking it. So, like, they're picking the medicine from the land that that everyone's feet are walking on. So they call it the force. One of the reasons is because you're entering into the force of the jungle. And the jungle has its own energy, its own intelligence. You know, especially I know they call the Amazon jungle the lungs of the lungs of the earth. It's also said that in the Amazon jungle, above, like in the air, there's a river flowing. So it has its own essence to it. So the ayahuasca, the uni, when you take it, it opens you up to the force. And so during the second serving, we go up, I get my second serving, go and sit down again, thinking to myself, goody, like I did it. Like, what's next? Whoa, what could happen now? God came, visited me. I have no idea what anyone else is experiencing because no one's talking to each other. So we're all in our own world while sharing this world together. So sit down. Someone stands up. Okay. And they start to. I'm going to relax. Someone stands up and starts to explain to us what's going to happen next. And the next portion of ceremony, so part 2 of ceremony, is the chanting of the Saités. And the Saités, they're chanting to their spirits. The spirit of the jungle, the spirit of the elders, the spirit of the medicine, the spirit of the entities that we don't see regularly or that are always present, but we're not perceiving them. And it was explained to us that as they chant the Saités, to remain in your seat, though if you have to move, it's okay to. Just move very, very slow. And I was like, aye, Captain. Because at this point, I trust the guidance. I'm in the medicine. I just saw the hand of God, or I saw a hand. I received these messages of I am. And so I'm like, okay, move very slow. So I'm sitting there, and as I'm sitting there, I could feel the medicine in my belly. I could feel it in my intestines. I could feel her experiencing me as I was experiencing her. And then everything I began to see changed and shifted. I could still perceive the third dimensional world, though now I was able to see like a grid. I was able to see this overlay with my eyes open. So my eyes are open right now. I could see this overlay. I could see the space that they were cleansing and clearing. And at that moment, I'm like, okay, I'm in it. I am in it. I know I'm in it. In the Force. I have arrived. And they're chanting. So I learned that they chanted for about an hour and a half or 2 hours. And while they were chanting, there'd be one person standing in the center of the circle on top of the boa constrictor by the resin that was burning. And they were by themselves chanting. Don't know what. Didn't need to know what. Because I could see things changing. I could see things shifting. So I'm like, I'm just going to trust this. I'm going to allow this. So like a lot of these other teachings started to come forward of like around like meditation or the Tao, where it's like, just allow, don't attach. I'm like, okay. And then I began to feel my body moving. And I was intrigued by that. It's like, what's going on? I could feel this, like my legs were straightening, my knees were bending, my body was just kind of like doing stuff like this. It was just kind of like moving all around. And it wasn't like a convulsive type of movement. It wasn't like a spastic type of movement. It was movement that was in control, though I wasn't the one controlling it. And at that point, I closed my eyes. And internally, I had this whole other experience going on. And the best way I've been able to describe it to others is, for those who have ever played Mario Kart and have done the Mario Kart course, Rainbow Road, that's what internally it looked like and felt like. I had this Rainbow Road just going endlessly, just endlessly. And around the road was this like circus esque type of energy. Yeah, no clowns, no clowns, none of like the circus folk, but just circus fun time energy. And if anyone has smoked DMT before, I've experienced that realm when I smoked DMT.
And if you haven't smoked DMT, I highly recommend looking up YouTubes of Terrence McKenna speaking about his DMT experiences, what he's been able to bring back from that realm, because it sounds like the circus realm. Like, it's kind of hard to remember everything you experience while in that DMT realm. They're so quick. Like my experiences have been no longer than 20 minutes, but what you can experience is like light years and everything. So DMT is known as the spirit molecule. I don't know if we've talked about that yet, but maybe. So when you smoke DMT, you are sort of propelled into the spirit realm, and so you get to see, like, at least for me, I got to see visually everything that's always there in the spirit realm, that if we had that vision 24/7, like while sober, no, this planet wouldn't have any structure or function. It's nice. It's a nice journey, because when I've landed back in my body after DMT experiences, I was grateful for my body and grateful for the 3D and structure, and I loved my visitation in the spirit realm, and I was glad that, man, that is just like wild, and anything can happen, and there's no structure. Just wild, playful. So yeah, if you're curious, look up Terrence McKenna's YouTubes where he describes DMT experiences, and then you'll get an idea of what the circus realm that Chris is describing is like.
Thank you. So eyes are shut. I'm experiencing this. And a thought came. How am I going to be able to explain this to anybody? And then again, the voice came that said, when you are, I am. So I am, kept replaying. I was like, oh, okay. So it started to make a little bit more sense to me, what I was experiencing before the second serving of the I am was like a gift for me to remain present during this moment. So my eyes were shut. I'm feeling movement in my whole body. Things are happening. I'm just allowing it. I'm smiling. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a fun time. And I don't know when, but I decided to open my eyes again. And when I opened my eyes, I saw these blue beings in the center of the circle. And it was apparent to me that they were doing something to me. And since I have cultivated practices and been utilizing methods and things like the energy leadership and the Tao and yoga and mindfulness and meditation, I was in a space where I could allow and accept whatever was occurring. I didn't have any fear or stress attached to it. And they're receptive to the allowing, the acceptance, the peace, the calm. They thrive off of that. And that's what they want. They want us all to be like, yay, you're here. Thank you. Just like really allowing of it. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. You guys are here. Wow. 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 And then I remembered, so I had something on my chest in my pocket the whole time. And I just like felt called to put this there. And it started to feel like fire. I started to feel a lot of energy coming through my heart. So I pulled this out. And I put it into my hand. And this is the bracelet that I got Rachel. And I was staring at it like, wow, I love you. And I could feel just my heart was just blasted wide open. It's almost like this was like a shield or a plug from my heart that was protecting me. And I think that's why I put it there, for your protection, for you to protect me. But when I took it out and I put it out, I then looked up. I saw the blue people. I saw blue person, blue person, blue person. And then another blue person that looked very familiar to me. And it was Rachel. My love. She was there in ceremony. And again, I didn't question anything. I was like, okay, you're here too. Amazing. And then that's when this wristband, this jewelry, this armor kind of like dissolved and disappeared. And then I saw it in the center of the circle. And I was like, wow, because it was on you. You were wearing it. And I was just so blown away. Because, as you mentioned earlier, I'm very much in my body. For years and years and years, I disassociated. My body wasn't safe. I have injuries. obesity, trauma, emotional abuse, no physical abuse. Well, bullying. Yeah, that took on physical abuse. But all these things that like kept me away from my body. And now I'm fully present. Though I feel so much that I don't necessarily see. Now I'm seeing everything that I feel in the ceremony space. And I'm seeing like Rachel's true essence. And I'm seeing her in her like intergalactic form. I don't want to call alien because we're all aliens. But like your intergalactic form, your intergalactic blue suit. And I saw you and I was like, wow, this is true. Everything we're experiencing and everything we're doing is true. And it's coming from a space of love and it's coming from a space of service. And I was like, wow. Okay. I closed my eyes again. At this point, I know that the blue people are like doing something within me. And in many ways, like I learned after the ceremony and after coming home that when I had my spinal fusion surgery back in 2018, I had an intuitive hit that maybe, just maybe, my spinal fusion instruments were more than just instruments. I think they were planted by the blue people. They were planted by something because ever since that, magic, just been pure magic and experiences. And it was confirmed that they were essentially doing this energetic surgery, checking in on the instruments that they had put in me. I was like, okay, and I just allowed of it. And I felt safe and I felt comfortable because you were there. As like a guide with your beings, with your family, with your people. Not even people, your stars. So at that point, it became a point where I wanted to get up. I needed to get up. I needed to move. So I got up. I started to walk outside. And I remember the guidance, move very slow. So I did. And as I walked, I would remember my feet. Like, remember your feet. There's another like voice, like, remember your feet. Just remember you're on the earth. Remember where you are. And I was walking and I was walking to the bathroom to go to the bathroom. I didn't have a purge. I just had to go. I just had to go pee. I just want to be clear, like, because I've noticed that there's a lot of like people that haven't done medicine and want to sit, and they might be fearful of sitting because of the purge, because that's what's broadcasted and what's advertised and what's marketed. That doesn't have to be the case. So it's not all puking and pooping. It can be a part of it because on the third ceremony, I pooped all night. But I just went to go pee. And as I was walking, I was just like being very careful to move slow. I could feel a major difference in the energy between being in the ceremony space and being outside the ceremony space. And, I go to the bathroom and then I walk back and I was like, felt so relieved because, I had to pee. And as I'm walking back, I'm seeing all the elder men on the outside. I'm seeing them create this fortress over the ceremony space. And I was like, interesting. And I also see people sitting on the side of the deck, purging and getting sick with shamans next to them, like holding space for them. And I'm also seeing their souls above their body. And I'm like, whoa. And then I'm also, remember my feet. Because I did notice when I got caught up in the excitement of what I was seeing, I started to move a little bit faster. And when I moved a little bit faster, I felt my spirit and my body separate. Like, it's hard to explain. It's really, really hard to explain. But I saw my ethereal body, like, leave my physical form. But I moved slow and it came back to center. And I'm walking, I go back, I stop, just like looking around for a little bit. And then I hear someone call me as I was walking back in. And I'm having this whole experience of like, holy shit, I am walking all the worlds right now. I am seeing everything that I feel. Because when I'm I feel everything. I don't share this with others. I know you know, but like I don't share this with others because it's hard to really share these things aloud around here. So I hear someone call me, and she's on the edge of the deck. She's having an experience, and she's like, "Hey, Chris, can you help me go to the bathroom?" And I took a moment, and I was like, honestly, I'm having an experience right now. I can't help you, though I will find somebody who can. Because there were people in our retreat that went on the retreat that were space holders for the retreat. I think it was like 4 or 5 of them. And Hodolfo, who my roommate, he was one of them. So I go to walk back inside and I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to find somebody on the inside? Like, holy shit. But as synchronicities work, as I was walking in, this woman, Gabby, was walking out. And her and I, just a few days prior to, we did a Qigong practice together. And I'm like, perfect, Gabby. So I yelled, hey, Gabby. Hey, Gabby. She's like, oh, Chris, are you okay? I'm like, yes. And then she's like, wait a second, you're here too? And I'm like, yes, I am. And when she said the you're here too, it's the, wait, you're walking the middle, upper, and lower worlds right now? You're not only in your spirit body, though, and you're in your spirit body and you're in your physical body? And she was in the same realms. I was like, yes. And we both acknowledged, like, whoa, how cool this is. Because as a space holder, like she knows, but she didn't know like I was going to be there too as just a retreat person because we don't know each other. And I said, "Hey, Gabby, someone needs your help." She's like, at first she was like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "Okay, I was going to go do this, though my purpose is to help others here. This is a part of my purpose. This is part of my calling." So I brought her over to the person. And then they sat down and she sat. And then I went back inside. I go back inside. I'm still very much fully in the force. I see all the blue people. I see my love again. And I could just again feel this like purity and connection between us. And I just allowed that intimate dance in exchange to occur. It almost felt like the toroidal field was just flowing between us. Just this energetic exchange was occurring within all dimensions. And they were still chanting. And I was blown away by the fact that they were still chanting. And the gusto in their voice and the energy that they were holding was like, wow. Because I knew what was going on. And then I began to notice my surroundings. I noticed that a group of guys that were sitting behind me, they were gone. And there was also, when did this didn't happen now, but the group of guys were gone. I noticed Mackenzie was still there, but the two other people from the cacao community, they were gone. I was like, the energy is so high in here right now that some people are unable to, like, their vessels or something is unable to handle what's going on. And I just like allowed it. And it was like we were in this space. So I sat there for a little bit longer. And I again felt called to walk outside because there was a voice. The voice again appeared that said, "Remember, you're here to help heal the healers." And I'm like, "Oh, yes." And then I remembered that I hooked like I brought a healer to somebody that needed help. So I got up, I moved slowly, I walked outside. I'm like, "Hey, Gabby." She's like, "Oh, wait, you still here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am." She's like, I'm like, "What do you need?" And she's like, "Oh my God, wow, thank you. Can you get me some water?" So I go back inside, I grab my water bottle, I walk outside, and you came this go around. And I walk outside and I give Gabby the water. She drinks some of it. I then this other lady had some water too. And Gabby's like, "Hey, can you help her stand up?" I'm like, "Yes." And I asked, I'm like, "How do you want me to do this?" They were clearly in a bubble. They were welcoming me into the bubble, but I didn't want to be a wrecking ball coming into this and pop it. I wanted to know how to proceed and how to do this effectively. So she goes, "Okay, just go stand in front, put your arms out, grab each other's hands." So I put my arms out, I crisscrossed my arms. Because, like, if you go like this, you're not as sturdy. If you cross, you're much, much, much more sturdy. So she grabbed my hands, squat down. Again, I'm remembering my feet, push down, stand up. She stands up. And I saw her soul land in her body. And I saw her eyes, like, fill back up. And I was like, holy shit. Wow. She said, thank you. We had a moment. And then Gabby took her to the bathroom. And at that point, I was like, I've been initiated into something. Like, I've been initiated into my calling. I've been initiating into my full power. Wow. And I decided to just, I felt like I was a part of like the guard now. It was really interesting. I didn't feel called to go back inside. I felt called just to like walk. And, there was this moment where I stood and stared up. Like, I was just like, we were just like staring up at the stars and you were there with me. And, I could see where you came from. Couldn't see the constellations, but you were essentially pointing, you're like, I'm from there. And we just like shared this moment with my physical body and my soul and your spirit body and your blue being body. And I was just standing there. We were standing there just astonished by how vast everything is. And our hearts were colliding. And our hearts were merging in a really beautiful way that words don't do justice for it. And then and then I noticed some dude stumble out of the like the ceremony space. And I walked up to him and I'm like, "Hey brother, are you doing all right?" He's like, "Yeah, man, I'm just going to go to the river." And I'm like, "You sure about that? You want to just hang out and talk?" He's like, "Nah, man, I'm good. I'm good." And I'm like, "Okay, enjoy." I didn't know what my role was. But I thought like at that point I did my job by being like, "Hey, by like where you go, like what are you up to?" He's like, "I'm going to the river." But then asking like, "Are you good? Are you sure that's where you want to go, brother? Like you want to hang and talk?" No, I'm good. So I'm like, I just let him go and then he disappeared. And then internally I'm like, "Oh, waiting for the news story." Man disappears in river and jungle. And then I'm like, "Oh, wow, I was the last one he spoke to." He did end up showing up later. I saw him again. So I was like, whew. Though, went back and just, we were there for a little bit, you and I. And then a shaman came up to me. And he's like, "Hey, man, you good?" I'm like, "Yeah, brother, this is the greatest initiation I didn't know that I needed." And he saw me and I saw him. And he's like, "Awesome. Keep going." I'm like, "Okay, I will." And then I decided to go back inside. I sat back down. And then they stopped chanting. The portal closed. Sadly, you disappeared and went back to wherever you were. The blue beings, they went away. And Hushahu got up and said something to everybody. She stood up. She thanked everyone for being there. She thanked her students because that was her students who sang and chanted. She's like, "Thank you for your studies. Thank you for giving it your all." And it felt like her students had prepared their whole life for that moment. And Husha was like, for the first time in a very long time, I could lay, surrender, and receive. And at that moment, I knew that space had been so expanded that the aliens felt comfortable to show up because she was expanding the container through the depths of her retreat and everything she experienced. And for her to say that she was able to surrender, as somebody who knows what that feels like in spaces that we hold, and when we surrender, the container expands that much more because people trust it and can go to that edge. I knew we were all heading to that edge. And then they opened up for more uni, a third serving. I didn't go up to it initially because I was still like, whoa. I was still in it. Not as strong. The force had definitely wore off a little bit, but I was still feeling it. And I was still like grasping what the hell just happened. Being like, well, I was initiated into the world of the shaman. I saw my love. I saw aliens. I felt my feet. I was in my body. I saw all the worlds. I was still like, my mind was like spinning, 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 spinning. Not spiraling into anything, just spinning into something. So just, they opened it up. They said, third serving, come up when you're ready. You don't need to take it now. So I took a seat and took an exhale and breathed a little bit.
Well, thank you. Thank you for once again going there, reaching back in through the heart of experience and putting it into words, truly synthesizing experience into words. It's an art. That's what artists do. Just to honor time, seeing that we've been going for over an hour and a half, and we want to keep these into digestible bites, I am wondering how you'd feel about wrapping this one up. I'm not sure how much more you'd like to share. I know that your gas tank is probably running on empty at this point. And so I'm more than happy to wrap this up. So I do think this will be our last video of the reflection series. I think you have given more than enough of your experiences, given people an idea of what a journey to Brazil to be with the Yawanawa is like, so that if anybody's interested and wants to go to the December retreat, I've got some information here about what they can expect. And so, final question, anything else you'd like to share as we wrap up?
I actually would love to close this off by hearing about your experience, if you feel comfortable, because I think it's really powerful and can be powerful to hear what happens with somebody else when you're really connected at the heart.
Sure. I was hoping I got away without you asking that. So my experience, like the whole time, or primarily that Friday night.
Yeah, Friday night.
So up until at this point, I had only heard from you once since you'd been in the jungle. So I was feeling a little raw. that's the longest we'd gone without communication since your Vipassana retreat. So there was just a lot of wondering how you are and knowing that you're in this immersive of an experience, and our souls are so deeply connected that it was a lot of wondering, which isn't the most comfortable place. And meanwhile, my life back home, I was taking care of Trixie, trying to keep Daisy from eating Trixie's food, and going to the yoga studio. Everybody at the yoga studio was asking about you and if I heard from you. And every time I was on the verge of tears. So Friday night, I was probably asleep while this was all going on. So very possible that my spirit completely left my body and materialized it as my blue form. And because when I woke up, I didn't remember any dreams or anything I had. I woke up and felt different. Like up until that point, I had been strong and excited for you. Just so excited for you, so happy that you were with our dear friend Mackenzie, and I had seen some photos of the cacao tribe, so I was just stoked. And then I woke up that Saturday morning and I felt inexplicably brokenhearted. And like I had been abandoned. And I had no idea why. I've had time to process. So in processing, I've been able to describe what it felt like was as though you'd left. Like if the aliens had arrived here, invited you onto the spaceship, you said yup, and you left me here. I shared with you that it reminds me of this time when I was going through this deep healing through the Akashics and through my ancestral lineage. And actually, I was sitting with cacao every day at this time when I was healing through some of the deepest trauma I've experienced in this lifetime. And through that healing, it was opening up all of the pathways into my cellular records, my DNA, into all of the trauma and how the trauma gets passed down generation to generation. And then that informs what we attract in this lifetime. So I, years ago, would sit with cacao on my yoga mat and go through all this healing and reconciling, though there were times where I was so exhausted and so frustrated that I would scream at the top of my lungs at my ancestors, and I'd scream, F you, like, how could you leave me here with this? How could you leave me here with these patterns? How come you didn't resolve these things before I came into this world? And I just was so angry. And it felt like they had abandoned me with this set of I don't want to say problems, but just entanglements that it all was up to me to weave in and through the now and purify through my heart, through my own personal ceremonies. And so that's the only thing I can kind of compare it to was feeling like they left me here with this. And for some reason, that's what I was feeling. Like, he left me here with this. Like, he just got in the spaceship and left. And I had no reason to feel that way. But then I got in the car and I was going to go to Saturday morning yoga with Cody. And This was the first. I've been enjoying driving around, and I had been enjoying my independence and playing my music in the car. And I got in the car and went to connect my phone to the car music player, and it wasn't working. And I was like, well, I guess I meant to hear what's ever on the radio. And I put on the radio, and it was Journey's Faithfully, which is like not a song that we ever listened to or have talked about. But I was like, all right, I guess this is the song I meant to hear. And I was listening to the lyrics. I don't think I've ever really listened to the lyrics of that song before. But then it was like forever yours faithfully. And I was like, oh, this is a message from Chris. Everything's going to be okay. We're still together. But yeah, it felt like just, it was weird. It was a really weird feeling. I was just feeling so raw from that point on, because it was almost a whole other week since you came home. Because then you came home the following Friday. So from that point on, I was just like crying a lot. And, but that Saturday is when I heard from you again. And you were like, I'm in a really tender space right now and I don't have a lot of time. But I just want to tell you that the Tao and everything we've been studying with Jesse is pure. And our community is pure. And the medicine is pure. And I was like, okay. And I was like bracing myself because of the way that you're like, I'm in a really tender space right now. I wasn't really sure the full like spectrum of what that meant. So I was kind of like bracing. And because of the way I felt, I was like, what if this is one of those times where someone goes and does ayahuasca and then they come back and they're like, yeah, I sat with the medicine and this is not the life I want. And so I was like, I was like, what about our relationship? And you're like, oh, we're fine. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, that's kind of what it was like for me. Of course, I wanted all the information, and I understood you weren't in a space to share yet. And then the world got really weird for a while. Matrix agents came after us and challenged us and challenged our our decision, our like shared decision to stay in the realm beyond duality. And we didn't take the bait. We stayed outside of duality. And yeah, did that answer? Okay. We can wrap this up. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, first of all, Christopher, for traveling back into the heart. It reminds me a lot of when I write. And when I write, I go so deep inside of myself to access all of the emotion and then travel through words that I could apply to the emotions that I feel. And so what you just did, it reminds me a lot of when I sit down or write. So I know how much that takes, and I really appreciate it, because we do have such a beautiful community who is so curious and just genuinely curious about these medicines. And we have a community who respects the travels that you go on and that we go on, and not everybody is in a place where they can prioritize those types of experiences, though when you share, it builds trust that they are worthwhile and maybe worth investing in. So thank you for sharing. And thank you to everybody who took the time to listen. We respect your attention. We call our business feedback loop coaching, because we believe in our ability as sovereign beings to keep our feedback loops pure. And that includes our informational diet. And we are in the universe of intellect here in the Western world. And there's just an infinite amount of information out there. And probably if you go searching for YouTubes on ayahuasca, there's probably an infinite amount of information on ayahuasca journeys and DMT journeys and blue beings. I'm coming to realize now as my algorithm is showing me blue beings. So knowing that this is the age of information, and you chose to sit with us and receive the information streaming through our channel, we appreciate it so much. And please know that every time we sit down with our cups of cacao to record something, we do ask source and Great Spirit and the cacao and our hearts, our highest selves, our oversouls, that everything shared is shared for the purpose of expanding the container of consciousness, and shared for the purpose of creating a flood of unconditional love, and to inundate the internet realms with infinite possibilities, because that's what we're all about. Anything to add?
Thank you for watching, tuning in. We'll catch you soon.